my name is Lily Willis. As Riley said, I am a current Samford Dietetic intern finishing up my rotation with UAB Employee Wellness. I just want to say I got to see on a very small scale what you all do on a very big scale to serve the Birmingham and UAB community. So if I can give back in just a small way, I hope this presentation is encouraging to you. I hope you learned something new. And like Riley said, you can interact with me throughout the chat box, and I'll definitely get to those questions at the end of the presentation. So this is my presentation titled All Foods Can Fit, Breaking the Fad Diet Cycle. Oh, I make sure my clicker is going to work for me. Okay, so a little bit about me before we get into the content of this presentation. I am originally from Elkton, Maryland. So I came to Birmingham, Alabama to study nutrition and dietetics at Samford University. And I was blessed enough to match with their dietetic internship. And I'm also getting my master's in nutrition and dietetics now, and will graduate in December. When I feel like I have free time, which really isn't much, I work at a wedding dress shop for fun. This has just been a great way to get to know a little bit more of the Homewood Birmingham community, get me out of my studying mindset, and has been a really sweet community for me. I will start applying to jobs in the next couple of weeks, which is really exciting for me. And an area of nutrition that I'm interested in is clinical nutrition. I would love to work with in a hospital in an inpatient setting. And a couple of years down the road, whatever that looks like for me, I would love to start my own private practice and offer personalized nutrition counseling. And one of the populations I'm interested in working with, among others, is diabetes. So before we get into this presentation a little bit more, it's important for me to set up objectives for this presentation. And there were so many that I could have chosen, but these three are important for me as a future dietitian. This is what I want you to understand and what I hope we can get out of with this content of this presentation. So I want us to be able to recognize characteristics of a diet or a fad diet, be able to list common fad diets in the media today, and then take this knowledge with what we know and learn how to approach dieting and the diet culture, and ultimately just finding a new and positive relationship with food. So my question for you all, you can put this in the chat. What are some common fad diets that you're aware of today? This may be a diet that you are trying out. Maybe you have neighbors and friends that are trying it out. You've heard of it on the media, in the news, low carb keto diet, Optivia. I'm not too familiar with that, but that's awesome. There are a lot out of there. Whole30, Atkins diet, paleo, perfect. I'll actually talk about some of these. Thank you for that feedback. So I like to ask that question to assess our knowledge, but truthfully, I think most of us could have answered that question without this presentation. And that's kind of the point of what a fad diet is. It's something that has traction to it, as some kind of fame. Maybe you've heard about it in the media or the news, and it's popular in some way. But it's important to define our terms. So a fad diet is defined as a nutritional regimen, generally of an extreme nature, intended to produce results more quickly than a traditional diet-exercise combination. I really like this definition because it pinpoints specific aspects of what a fad diet is. So it's a regimen, it's a certain way of eating. It tends to have an extreme nature to it, and it's supposed to produce results quickly. I also like this definition because it kind of compares what maybe a healthful overall eating pattern in conjunction with physical activity or movement may look like compared to a fad diet. And we really didn't have to have the second part of the definition to understand what a fad diet is, but I like this definition because it compares the two. So what's the main objective? The main objective is to help people lose weight, but not just to help people lose weight, it's to help people lose weight fast. So some common fad diets, and some of you all mentioned these in the chat box: keto diet, South Beach, detoxes, paleo, and I want to touch a little bit on intermittent fasting because that's very popular. There's a lot of research that is still to be done about that. So these are the ones that we'll talk about today. Now, I also like to ask the question, where does this mindset come from? Where is this coming from? How did we get here? If you are in research or public health, advocacy, or policy, if you're in the medical field, you like to ask this question: what's the etiology where does this mindset come from? And without getting into the topic of body image too much, which I think warrants itself to a whole new presentation, and I wish I had time for it, really coming from this idea back to the ancient Greeks. So this glorification of the body and what the body was supposed to look like, and anything that didn't look like the body is demonized. And so it brings on this idea of how do we change that and maybe result in a way of dieting. Now, it's not the natural way that our body deals with food. And without getting into the biochem of things too much, which is really where a lot of my passions lie, our body is amazing and we're able to adapt in that way. It's able to understand this perceived start of starvation, and it's able to work to give us energy, but it's not how it likes to do that. And so this is kind of just setting up a brief framework of where we're going with this presentation. So recognizing a fad diet. I think it's important to recognize what some of these diets are asking us to do or claiming that we have to do. And you won't see all 5 of these at once, but you may see different variations of them. So like we talked about, rapid weight loss claims, specific quantities and limitations. So maybe this is restricting whole food groups, but having uncontrolled amounts of other food groups. Particular food combinations, so only eating at a certain time of the day, but not other times of the day. And again, none of this is inherently bad, but just asking yourself, is this something that is going to sustain me? And is this something I can do? Which is what I like to ask about the next number 4, a rigid menu. Is this something I can follow for the rest of my life? And then lastly, you don't always see this claim, but with a lot of the rapid weight loss claims, they'll say, and you don't need to exercise, which I think is kind of just cutting ourselves short, because we know exercise has a lot more benefits than just weight loss and weight maintenance. So it helps regulate our blood sugar. It helps our GI system. It keeps us regular, and it also boosts our mood. So just recognizing these 5 characteristics as we approach dieting culture is going to be important for this presentation and even after this presentation. Let's first start with the keto diet. I think this is probably one of the most popular. We know that research takes it back years and years ago to where this may help individuals who have epilepsy, and there is research to back that up. But this keto diet in the fad diet culture is what we're looking at. It's a high fat, low carbohydrate, moderate protein diet. And so the recommendation here is that you're eating less than 50 grams of carbs per day. So to put this into context, 15 grams of carbs is about a normal slice of bread. And maybe if you have a medium-sized banana, is about 30 grams of carbs. So you can see that 50 grams of carbs is really not a lot in the day. So that's where we're restricting our carb intake to. Now, some quick background knowledge. Our body really loves carbs. We love glucose. Our cells, our brain, our body really prefers that source of energy. So when we don't have carbs, we don't have glucose, and we're in this state of starvation. Now, like I said, our body is amazing and we can recognize that. So although we're in a state of starvation, we find ways to give our brain energy, our organs energy. And so we shift from breaking down glucose from carbs to breaking down fat for energy instead. And so this is where we start to produce ketones and we reach this state of ketosis. Now you'll see that a lot of people may report in the beginning stages of feeling dizzy or fatigued. They may have a headache, constipation, GI issues. And so what I wanted us to recognize with this diet is not only is it highly restrictive in the carb area, it's also really hard to reach ketosis. So what this is asking is about less than 5% of your calories coming from carbs, which, as we know, is really not a lot. So when most people say they're on a keto diet, they're probably following a high fat, low carb protein diet, but I would bet you not most of them are in ketosis. And so for that reason, this would not be recommended for specific individuals and specific disease states. Let's look at the South Beach diet. I wanted to include this diet on here because I didn't know much about it. It's a fairly new diet, originated in 2003, founded by a cardiologist. It's a low carb, high protein, healthy fat diet. So it sounds pretty similar to the keto diet that we just discussed. And so the purpose here, they claim, is to change the balance of food. So this is a diet for someone that wants to restrict their carbs and maybe increase a healthy fat intake. Now, again, none of this is inherently bad, but it's important to recognize, what is this diet asking us to do? So there are restrictive phases of it in the beginning weeks, because we're shifting our energy from maybe carbs making up a lot of our food to the protein and the fats. And so a little bit more about this diet, you can find their products online. They advertise through cookbooks and products, and they come in fully prepared meals. So it could be prepackaged meals or frozen meals. And I wanted to see what these products looked like. So I just Googled them on their website. And to the right here, you see 2 options for their breakfast menu. They have granola bars and muffins and omelets with veggies. And I'm all about the omelet for sure. Okay, so this next one is one of my favorite topics, detoxes. And I put this little meme on here, which was given to us when I was in undergrad by one of our professors. Can anyone put in the chat, what is this meme getting at? What's the irony here with this meme? What does our liver do? Yes, perfect. Your liver detoxes itself. So our liver, like I said, I'll go back and back again. I'm continually amazed by our body. Our body has already in processing detox modes, and that's done by our kidneys and our liver. So that's kind of just what this meme is getting at, just to poke fun. But really, where are detoxes coming from? Truly, you can do them at any time, but we see them a lot introduced around holidays, before or after holidays, maybe around times of celebration, times then you probably should have just been enjoying your food, or could have been enjoying your food, but there was this detox aura around it. So you can see this in different variations, juice cleanses, fasting, restricting certain food groups. And really what most detoxes are looking at, they're removing certain highly processed foods, maybe sensitive food groups. And these food groups would be dairy and gluten, which of course is different for those that are celiac or lactose intolerant. And then certain allergens that may cause issues like eggs, nuts, and red meat. And like I said, our body has a natural detoxing system. So we actually have a group of enzymes. It's called cytochrome P450. These are the enzymes in the liver that work to do this for ourselves. So medication, drugs, alcohol, these are all detoxed through the liver. And then through normal metabolic processes of the food we eat and our body as a system, it produces waste products. So these waste products are urea or lactic acid, and our kidneys do an amazing job of taking care of that for us. So really just kind of getting to the idea that we don't need to restrict foods to get to this point. We don't need to assist, but we can support in this already ongoing process. And so I love these 7 steps, because what you'll see is we're not restricting foods, we're not taking food groups out, but we're actually using food as fuel. And I like to say food is medicine. You'll hear that a lot in the dietetics world, that we get to use the nutrients through what we're eating. So of course, hydrating with clean water, eating fruits and vegetables, which are packed with antioxidants, increasing fiber to promote proper GI and bowel function, increasing intake of cruciferous vegetables. I love number 4, because research has shown that there are certain enzymes in Brussels sprouts and broccoli that actually aid in this detox process, which is absolutely amazing. And the same with number 5. So lean protein contains something called glutathione. That is our body's main detox enzyme. And then eating fermented foods also help with our gut health, which is also a whole nother topic. And then if you have any questions about how to boost your eating patterns, maybe things that you're eating, adding more variety, and if you want to start on a multivitamin, I would recommend talking to a dietitian and of course your doctor. Let's look at the paleo diet. I know someone did mention this in the chat box here. So also known as Paleolithic or hunter-gatherers. So the purpose here is to eat like our ancestors, which will promote weight loss and prevent disease. So there really are different variations of the paleo diet, which just goes to show that no diet is the same. No one person's eating pattern can be the same, and it shouldn't be. And so what this diet is getting at is we're limiting processed foods, so mainly foods that have added sugars and maybe excess salt. And then we're also limiting certain food groups like dairy, legumes, and grains. So these are looking at foods that we can hunt and gather. So fruits, eggs, meat, greens, vegetables, beans, things like that. Now, like I said, there are different variations of this diet, and we're finding with research that maybe a more plant-based and high-protein eating pattern can help specific individuals in specific disease states, like those with diabetes. But you don't necessarily have to increase plant-based protein or plant-based products and high protein to follow a paleo diet. That's just the research we're finding. And like I said, there are different variations of the paleo diet. So research finds that our ancestors actually did eat grains, so we don't have to restrict carbohydrates completely. And again, this is different than if someone just finds that that's better for them. But what this diet is asking us to do is to take out those processed foods, and in some food groups, dairy, legumes, and grains. Now, I wanted to finish up a quick intro on intermittent fasting. This is a hot topic today. I think there's a lot of really exciting research coming out. I know UAB is in the process of conducting 2 different studies, and they're looking at specific disease states here. So I'll be really interested to look at when that research finally comes out to ask certain questions. But intermittent fasting comes in different variations. So we have time restricted, alternate day fasting, and modified fasting. So time restricted, again, it's pretty much those hours you've chosen to eat, and then the rest of the hours you would fast. So this can look like eating 6 hours of the day or eating 12 hours of the day and not eating the other hours. So you're fasting to some extent. Alternate day fasting, pretty much exactly how it sounds. So on some days you're eating, and then some days you're fasting. And then modified fasting. This is really reducing your overall amount of calories to just 20 to 25% of your normal intake. And so you're fasting in that way. Now, like I said, I'm excited to see the research come out about this because there's still much more to be done. But what we do know right now is there are hunger pangs. So if you are fasting in some way, you're probably going to be hungry, and that's not really hard to figure out. That makes sense. We're also seeing that we may overeat on our feeding days, more so than when we would have eaten if we weren't fasting. And of course, because we're fasting, we are seeing that there can be weight loss that can occur in some instances. This research that I found, though, had individuals that were already at normal to healthy weights, and so their weight loss really wasn't too significant to make those claims. And so what they're seeing is that there's no significant difference between intermittent fasting and other weight loss diets because you are fasting or restricting yourself in some way. Now, what I wanted to get at is that there is a future for intermittent fasting, whether it's something we recommend or something we don't recommend. Research still needs to be done here. What we're seeing, though, is that this may be helpful in understanding certain metabolic processes in those that are obese or those that have diabetes. So really looking at hunger hormones, blood sugar regulation, and I think that's really exciting to see. And I'll be excited to see what other researchers come up with as well. So now that we've talked about all of these questionable approaches to food, what is a healthful approach to food? I think there are a lot of different ways we can start with this, but I think one of them may just be identifying an area that you want to improve, or maybe a goal that you have for yourself around eating. So this can be as small as maybe reducing the amount of sugar sweetened beverages that you take throughout the week, or maybe you eat a lot of food away from home and you want to start meal prepping or making foods at home instead of other settings. So really just thinking about a smaller goal, an overarching goal, and nothing too daunting at first. And of course, we're always going to recommend a variety of foods. And this is what we'll get back to time and time again, is instead of restricting foods, we get to eat the food and we get to enjoy it. So increasing fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean meats, lentils, beans, milk, and yogurt. Of course, focusing on foods that energize you. Really what I'm getting at here is listening to your body. What is your body enjoying? What is it reacting to well? What brings you enjoyment? I know for myself, I love sweets. So almost every weekend I will make either a new recipe or I have this ongoing recipe that I keep going back to. And I love knowing that I have sweets for the week. And I love the process of making those sweets. So that's something that really brings me enjoyment. And I really look forward to in that throughout the week. I know it sounds silly, but that's just really where I'm at with my sweets. And then of course, nutrient dense foods. So what do we mean by nutrient dense? This is really getting more out of your food and finding foods that energize you, offering fiber, protein, micro and macronutrients that are really going to help all of these amazing bodily systems work well for your good and your health. And then, of course, I'm always going to advocate for the dietitian. These are experts in the field in food and nutrition. And really what they're doing is they're tailoring a plan that works for you and your specific needs. And so I just wanted to put this visual on here. I'm sure a lot of us are aware of my plate. This is put on by the USDA and really just gives us a great visual of what we recommend your plate to include. It's okay if you're not getting all of these things at once, but having this picture in your head, figuring out, okay, maybe I need to add more veggies for today. So at least we recommend half of your plate to be fruits and vegetables, and then at least half of your grains to be whole grains, maybe a lean protein, and then depending on recommendations for you, a low or a full fat dairy. And I think this presentation wouldn't be helpful if I didn't give you some resources to combat those other loud voices in the media. So these are credible resources that I love. Please take a picture of this or we will send them along in a follow-up email. These are some of my favorite dietitians and doctors, and they just have amazing, beautiful, wonderful approach to food. And so I think it's really important for us to, when we see these diets in the media or diet culture, to be critical of who's making these claims. Are they experts in the field? Have they worked hard in their field and done research to get to that point? And all of these on here have. So these are my favorite. Definitely snap a picture. Our top left, she works specifically with eating disorders. She does a great job. And then our bottom right, Rachel's Good Eats, she's my favorite one. She's also a certified personal trainer. So I really got into her workouts, her free workouts during COVID. So I hope these resources are helpful to you. And then in conclusion, just remembering those 5 characteristics of a fad diet, remembering, what is this diet asking me to do? Is this sustainable? Is this something I can keep doing? Is it something I want to keep doing? Working with your doctor and dietitian to find a plan that works best for you specifically. And like I said, it's okay to be critical of extreme health claims. It's okay to be critical until you've read the research yourself and to also see who is making those claims. And no matter what your goal is, it doesn't have to be weight loss, but living a healthful and balanced life can be reached without restricting foods. Thank you so much. I hope this was encouraging to you all, and I welcome any questions that you have.